welcome to Inside the Drama Teaching Emporium. My name is Maja, and today we are here with Sarah and Emma. As we all already know, Sarah is the co-founder of the Drama Teaching Emporium and the founder of Creation Drama Studio, and Emma is her sister, who works with inclusivity and accessibility for disabled people. So we are going to touch on some very interesting and important topics today. Hello, both.
Hello.
Hello.
So first question is, Emma, would you like to explain to us what it is that you do and how does that connect with arts?
So I work for an accessibility consultancy. We are based across Europe. I'm based in London. We work with organisations across many different sectors and also the arts to create accessible solutions for disabled people. So that can be in the recruitment of disabled people. It can be around employment, thinking about accessible solutions in things like banking, and also how to spotlight and promote disabled talent, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of community-based work, so that can be looking at disabled artists, disabled filmmakers, things like that.
Lovely. And what is the general situation that, in your opinion, doesn't have to be like, what is the general situation and what are the common challenges that you face in this world?
So representation is still really, it's not great in terms of disabled representation when it comes to things like, if you look at film, if you look at theatre, if you look at TV, if you look at photography, like, all of these things, it's not, there are still not enough disabled people that are getting to be in these spaces. Mm-hmm. But it is improving. I think in the UK, I can speak to especially looking at, channels like ITV, Channel 4, they've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes as well as in front of the screens around like representation. So you can walk into the ITV studio and there are disabled people, there are wheelchair users, there are people who are very open about their disability, and that's because of the work that they've done. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the TV and there's that representation there. It's just not quite enough yet, but it to be positive about it, it is moving forward. And I'd also say BAFTA is doing a hell of a lot of work as well, which is really exciting.
Nice, that's amazing. Lovely. Sarah, how would you, there are obviously still some challenges but also positive impacts on everything. How would you connect this with your experience in the classroom as a drama teacher? Have you ever had a situation or a student that maybe was a disabled student?
Yeah, me and Emma have quite a lot of conversations about this, and I think there's so much I still need to learn and I want to know about, and we're going to talk more in the future about, making our space and our classes more accessible and things like that. We haven't been contacted that much by parents with disabled children. The most experience we've had is with children on the spectrum or children with autism, for example. The one thing I'd say is there's kind of a big divide between parents who tell you that their child has autism or is on the spectrum, for example, and the parents that don't give you that information up front. And what we've experienced in the past is that we've had a child come into the class, been working with them for a little bit of time, and realised that in terms of communication and working with them, we've become a bit stuck and we haven't understood why. So we've had some challenges there, and because we didn't have the information up front. So we weren't clear about how to communicate or how to work with them or how to make them feel comfortable or how to make the experience most enjoyable for them because we weren't aware.
You didn't have the tools, yeah.
Exactly. And I think I don't know specifically why that happened, but I wonder if there is a fear in parents of volunteering that information up front, fear of discrimination, or maybe not even being able to participate in something like a drama class, which is obviously incredibly sad to think that it might be that.
And it might be based in their real life experience, so who knows how many times they actually had this experience.
Exactly, potentially. And in those situations, when I've gone to the parent eventually to say, look, this is kind of what we're experiencing, they would then explain to me the situation and say, oh yeah, if you're going to communicate and give instruction, you have to have eye contact, for example. Wouldn't be necessarily aware of that beforehand, but then it makes a lot of sense. But small bits of information like that can be incredibly useful. And then everything did get a lot better, everything did improve, and the child's experience did improve in the classes. So I would say that one thing would be that to make sure that our classes but as we promote them, seem like they are accessible in that sense, and to make sure that parents are aware that anyone can join.
Yeah.
You don't have to be afraid of anything like that. You should not be afraid of anything like that. Because when kids do join, and we're aware up front that they have a disability, for example, when we have open, clear communication with the parent and the child, it's incredible what can happen in the classes, the experiences that child has, and the way you see them grow, and the way the drama classroom can be very therapeutic and very enjoyable for them.
And maybe also have a positive impact on their disability.
But what you're speaking to there, if
Yeah.
you apply that to work, it's access accommodations. Like if someone goes into a new job and they are disabled and they don't share their access accommodation, they don't share their disability with their employer, they are completely not set up for success. But why they're not sharing that information, because there is that fear of stigma, discrimination. If that employment situation, environment isn't welcoming or not asking them the questions, it's obviously different with children because there's the parents' involvement. But if their parents aren't disclosing that information to you, you're not set up for success to create that environment for them. So it's about, I think it's that honest dialogue and how you set up that psychological safety almost to make sure that people feel they can be their full selves.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Definitely.
Definitely. As we are talking about all of this now, there are definitely some misconceptions and challenges and barriers that you mentioned before for disabled people. You told me about an artist that you are working with. So can you tell us a little bit more about these misconceptions or barriers that they have to cross to actually get to the same place?
Yeah, there's a couple of examples. So we work, they're my favourite client, which I should not say, but they're a disability-led organisation. They're a studio that's based in Peckham in London, and they are all learning disabled artists. Their work is phenomenal. Their work is in the V&A, it's going into the new V&A East. It's highly regarded. One of their artists recently had a solo show in New York. She's just had a solo show in Cardiff. They're really talented artists. However, because they have learning disabilities, there's a huge problem in getting payment because of benefits and things like that. But also the stigma around clients panic about working with someone who has a disability because they're worried about how that might impact the delivery, how it might impact the pace, how it might impact all of these things. And actually it's about having a conversation with the artist, the studio manager and things like that. They're getting more and more work, which is great, but it's taking time. And another example is a young photographer called Dexter McLean. He's really talented. He's a wheelchair user. His family's from Jamaica. He recently did a series of portraits around disability in Jamaica. They're stunning. They're really stunning. And we commissioned him not too long ago to do a shoot for a magazine. And my boyfriend actually art directs that magazine, and it's called Mundial, and it's very good and footballish, if you like that kind of thing. So what we had to think about around that shoot and talk to the magazine that we're leading that shoot for, it was about access accommodations. It's like, okay, he's a wheelchair user, so we need a studio with a lift. We need clear wayfinding. We need, to make sure he's got space to do his job. But also there were 3 disabled footballers on that shoot as well. Hence why we wanted representation back of camera as well as in front of the camera. Because it's not enough just to see disabled people, like in magazines, up on TV. What about the people that are doing the work behind the scenes, the photographers, the film producers, the digitechs, all of this stuff? There's still such a problem with training. Like, there's still such a problem with getting internships. There's still such a fear that it's going to be too hard or too costly. It's simply not the case. It's just people aren't aware of that. And people don't want to have the conversation sometimes.
That's what I was going to ask, the conversation.
Yeah.
I think there's for able-bodied people, I think there's a fear of having those kind of conversations and what, even, you know, what to say, what not to say, what to ask, what not to ask, for example.
Exactly.
Whereas if it can be an open communication and you're in an environment where it's a safe environment to have that conversation, then there should be no problem there.
Exactly. And ask all the questions, because I'm sure that everyone has the questions, but you're always being very careful in the way that you are going to phrase your questions and the things that you're going to say.
Yeah.
But you're lacking information,
Yeah.
which means that you don't know how to actually behave in these situations.
I had a really great conversation with a grandmother at school. We do school visits at Tilting the Lens. It's part of our community strategy. So my boss, Sinead Burke, went to speak at school in front of 215 students.
Fun.
They were literally staring at her, and Sinead was like, "Do you want to sit on the stage with me?" I was like, "Absolutely not. I'll be right over here. Like, don't let them look at me." And I was like hiding. And a grandmother was talking to me afterwards. Her child is she volunteers at that school, hence why she was there. Her child's child, so her grandchild, is neurodiverse, and she's very young. I think she's 7, and her other child has just had a baby girl, and she is a little person. And the grandmother was saying to me, you know, it's a whole new world. Like, I mean, things like this just weren't discussed and weren't talked about when I was growing up and when I was raising my children. She's like, isn't it lovely that they are now? Isn't it wonderful to see different types of people taking up space? Like Sinead writing this book, she was like, and she was like, for my youngest grandchild who's going to grow up, seeing different people in different spaces and in public spaces, she was like, it's so important and it makes the world better. And I was like, this is a woman who's actively said that she's relearned things and she's constantly educating, but it's just about re-educating. It's just about educating yourself. And if you want to ask questions, if you're asking them in a polite way, ask them.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with the right intention behind it.
With the right intention. You might get it wrong. You might say the wrong word. Everyone's learning. Everyone's,
Exactly.
I mean,
making mistakes.
yeah, and you don't know what you don't know. So I think, you know, the fear of not asking the question, the fear of not embracing difference, or I mean, it harms businesses, we know that, and it harms society.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
But I think it's as simple as that. Even with the students that we do have, that, for example, one girl who is autistic and she's been with us for a long time now, the open communication with her mother has always been incredible. I honestly, this mother is amazing. And so therefore with the student, we can have that space of such open communication. When there's anything going on, we can just sit down and talk about it. And because we've been working like that for so many years now, we can already tell in advance when it's time to say, okay, maybe for a moment you need to step outside of class and have your own time and your own space. But we would never have got to that point if we didn't just talk and ask the questions
and
directly between us and the student as well, not just the mother, but between and ask the questions. And it's what's really incredible is to see how the student deals with this stuff, because she's very open in her communication, and she can be so proud of the way she communicates with this stuff, and she's not hiding behind anything. She's open and honest with everything that she goes through.
It makes her who she is. It makes her and
exactly.
And because you've created that safe environment for her to be who she is, she can just excel.
And honestly, as an actress, wow.
It's amazing.
Because she's not got that barrier and she's not masking and hiding. And you could apply it again to the work environment. If people aren't hiding and masking and using up all their energy to be someone they're not, they will do better. And this is why we know that businesses always do better financially, and they grow if they have diverse teams. They make decisions quicker, better decisions, in the same way that, you know, you'll perhaps see more creativity from your students if they're allowed to be themselves.
Our students actually react to her, and the way that the group is.
They learn.
Yes. It is a completely different level of teamwork and collaboration.
Absolutely.
Completely different.
Absolutely, yeah.
And once we're talking about that, it is also a very important question to ask, not only for drama teachers especially, but for everyone who is in this situation. Where do people seek support? Who do they ask? Where do they get the information that they need to create the space that they want to create for disabled people?
I mean, there's a couple of things. So our team at Tilting the Lens, we're majority disabled, so whether that's physical disability or invisible disability. And I would say our advice is always, you know, if you want to learn about this, I mean, you can read. There's many different resources out there. There's many different activists and people to follow and to hear from, listen to disabled people firstly. And then also if you're, you know, working with someone who's disabled and you know they're disabled and you want to learn about their, you know, if you're going to ask in a polite way, just like sometimes ask the question. Or for instance, if you know a child's coming to a drama studio, coming to your studio with a disability, you're aware of it, you've had the conversation with the parent, ask them what they might need. Ask them, is there anything we can do to support you, to make your experience better? You know, you don't have to, obviously not in a public space, have that conversation with them. If they're not ready to tell you, ask again in a few weeks' time. I think it's about that constant engagement, not to a point where you're overpowering it,
or it's becoming like a
but asking the question, because if you don't ask at all, no one's going to actively give you that information. Like, it's like, I have a mental health disability, I never disclose that to any employer because no one asked me, and so I just lied when I couldn't go to work or something was going on in my life. I just lied. Like, I was like, I'm just not going, like, my camera's off because there's some work going on behind me. My computer's broken. Like, people will make up reasons not to share. So if you can kind of have that continuous dialogue. So, but if someone doesn't share immediately, they might in time.
Okay.
And if you're creating that safe environment where, you know, not disability, where difference is celebrated and included, then people will naturally start to understand that it's a trusting environment, and they'll feel psychologically safe.
And that is the most important part of it.
Yeah.
And then I would say that also as a drama teacher, I was in situations where I was like, what do I do? Well, how do I handle this situation? Because I am aware, but I didn't have the tools to do that. So it is very important, like, these informations are gold to just actually ask, because sometimes you don't know what are the limits of what you're supposed to be doing. But that's also very important. How do we recognize how far can we go with the expertise that we have as drama teachers or as just human beings? How far can we actually go into this conversation or actually trying to help that it's not too far?
I mean, I think there's different ways to approach it. Like, I think about the school visits that, you know, Sinead does and did, and we stopped them for a while, but then I think about how important they are, because you go into with children, you work with children, when you show and you have these conversations and you bring people together to have them, it shows that it's something, it shows something you value and something that you're interested in, and then it opens people up. So for instance, if there is a situation with a group and there's, you know, bullying or there's bad, you know, negative words being used, could you bring them together and do a bit of a, like, class around inclusion and talk about, like, I think it's about showing that it's something that you're passionate about without going, for instance, constantly going to one student and asking them, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bring it together as a group, because I look at, you know, what happened at the school visit the other day with those 215 scary students. They were only young as well. I don't know why they scared me. I got an email from the head afterwards as well to say that a young boy in that class, in that one of those classes, he has a physical disability, but he's very shy around it, doesn't like to share it very often because it's not super visible, but it is visible. He'd read Sinead's book, Break the Mold, before, but that day after that, he was just beaming and like, I'm going to go home and read it. And he was just like, he had such a positive afternoon. He was just like, apparently his mum said he feels 10 foot tall. He feels so empowered, like, because she sat on a stage with these students talking about how difference and being your true self and embracing your disability or your difference or your race or your culture, it makes you and it makes you special. Like, not like it makes you special because it makes you you. It's like
you're unique.
Because everyone's unique. So to hide it and to be embarrassed about it, like, you don't have to be. Like, so I think it's that. I think it's sometimes you have to almost be like, okay, well, we're going to do this as a group collective. We're going to talk about this conversation. We're going to show that it's important to us, because then it shows that it's important, and
Absolutely.
that'll resonate with them, hopefully.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I think that how we also connect, we talk so much about drama classes being an open space where the whole point is to be yourself and to be celebrated for being yourself. So I think that drama classes are actually perfect place to celebrate the difference, the diversity. And there are so many other things there that we can use in drama classes. It's also collaboration, teamwork, being part of the group.
Absolutely.
Even the public speaking, the way to express yourself. So what do you think, what are other things that we might find in drama class that's actually a very prolific space to celebrate this diversity?
I was going to say even the idea of role play, for example, of maybe experiences people have encountered, difficult experiences have encountered, and having a role play where sides are swapped, for example, to see the experience on the other side. For example, you said like using like unkind words or something like that, to kind of, if there was something like that happened in class, to turn it around and say the experience from the other side, how does it feel, and discussions around that. I think role play, putting people in different experiences, is a really interesting way to kind of work through any difficulties that people might have experienced before. And, you know, we always find within our classes, once you start a discussion that brings people together in one way or another, you can find the topic. For example, it could be bullying, for example, it could be unkind words, or feeling different in some way. You will find that as people open up more and more, the whole group tends to open up, because they're like, okay, and I've experienced this. Then you see how you have a lot of similarities and things in common with people you didn't realize you had in common with them before, because you saw them as different to who I am. And I think that's a really nice way that you can open up and be part of a group and be part of a community in that sense.
And it's about, I think, and children have a much better way of doing this than adults do, like being vulnerable. Like like sitting with your vulnerability. Like, I had this experience, it was awful. Like Sinead shared, sorry, I keep going back to the school visit, but it was very good. But she shared,
kids teach you a lot.
Kids really do. I came away like, they're just so smart. But she was sharing an awful experience that happened to her personally a couple of years ago. She shared it, and when she shared it, it was like whack-a-mole. Like, a kid would put a hand up, and then another, they were just like, and I had this experience, and I had this experience, and there was this young kid from the Ukraine, and he was like, I had this experience, and like in a school. Anyway, they were all sharing. They were all making themselves vulnerable. When you ask adults to do that in a work environment, when you ask CEOs to do that, they don't like to sit with their vulnerability very much. So that's a lot of the work we do, which is harder than working with children. But what I'd say is that doing that with children is so impactful, because it's also going to shape their mind and shape who they become.
Exactly.
Like, get them while they're young.
Oh, definitely.
And it's exactly what I wanted to say. Actually, allowing them to have this kind of space where they can share and where they can learn. I know that if we, when we were younger, we had a space where we were learning about these things, we would grow up into being completely different human beings.
Absolutely.
But then connecting into relearning and learning all the time is the key factor in all of this, because as you say, if we get them young, honestly, classrooms in general are the perfect places to set the right values. And if we, as drama teachers, we are teaching drama, so if we also as teachers relearn and start including all of this information into our classes, we can maybe have a better society one day.
Honestly, it's what we're really trying to do. It's very hard, but it's like you can see it happening, and this is why, you know, for me, part of my job, the school strategy is so vital, because like these are the people that are going to shape the world going forward. It's hard to change adults' perception of, you know, of what it
of anything.
And you said that about grandma and how the grandma's relearning. But we even know with like people like our parents' generation, the society they lived in is incredibly different to the society we live in now. And even some topics of conversation, you find that it's really difficult for them to understand our point of view, because they didn't grow up like that. Exactly. That's what they're not what they're used to.
And the thing is, it's not about being like, it's not about, I think it's going back to that fear aspect around it. It's like, yes, it might be scary. You might say the wrong thing. It's you know, but if you don't say anything, especially when you're thinking about young people and students and things like that, if you're not, if the parents aren't helping you with that and sharing that information, it's not helping the children,
Yes.
because it's not going to shape their experience. So yeah, I mean, I just think the arts in general, like having more diversity is obviously so important, but yeah, disability representation behind the camera as much as in front of it, and behind the scenes, not just camera, but you know what, like learning about production, learning about how to use cameras, learning about lighting, like things like that. Again, these aren't skills that are often offered to disabled people, because again, there's that stigma around can they do it, and
Can
it's
they
like
do- yeah.
And also, do the people that train in it have the, like you said, have the that kind of experience or have the knowledge to be
Yeah.
able to understand how to then teach it
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
be inclusive for everybody, to teach it to anyone.
Exactly. And I would also say that having this kind of conversation is the way to start. Because
yeah,
I'm so much smarter now about the whole thing. You know, I feel more equipped to be able to help to somebody just with a simple conversation. I think just starting the conversations in our professional groups, like with other professionals from the same field that we are in, just starting the conversation and actually saying we don't know things, and
So, okay,
and,
yeah.
and we all have these parts where we don't know things, but it's also sometimes you feel like you have to be there for everything and you have to be aware of everything, but if you just don't say that you don't know things, you're never going to learn them. So I think
Exactly.
that sharing the information, putting the information out there is going to help so many people to actually be able to use it.
Yeah, no, it's true. And, you know, I think it's also, like, empathy is such a huge term, but it's so important. Like, and it's not talked about, I think, enough as, you know, when you're an adult, but it's something that's you're constantly being told about when you're a child, you know, being polite, being empathetic, being all of these things. And it's just, yeah, it's about that kind of understanding and, like, wanting to understand different people's experience.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was lovely, and we are very happy to have these conversations here inside the Drama Teaching Emporium. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode.